Unfortunately, we don't have a microphone, so I'll try to speak loud. Let me know if you're not hearing me. Our agenda today is to begin with the speaker. And Janet's going to introduce our speaker, Officer MacKendrick. Then we're going to have a little break for refreshments, and then do the WCLT annual business meeting, electing new board members and so forth, the formal part of our organization. So, no further ado, if you could introduce.
Yeah, so I'm Janet Anderson. I'm the chair of the WCLT Education Committee, and one of the duties of the Education Committee is to hire our annual speaker. So we're very pleased tonight to have Melinda MacKendrick. She has been animal control officer in Westborough since 1990, with a little hiatus where she was not with us and then came back. And she's also been animal control officer in Northbrook for quite a while, but no longer, correct? Correct, yeah. So that for a time she was covering 2 towns. But anyway, she's been with us for many, many years, and I know Melinda personally because her daughter, Ivy Sky, was in Girl Scouts with my daughter, Elizabeth, when I was the leader of the troop. So I've known Melinda pretty much back that far, I think. Well, almost, yeah.
She was born in 95, so.
Yeah, not quite that far back. Not quite that far back. But anyway, we're very pleased to have her speak to us tonight. So please welcome Melinda MacKendrick.
Pretty broad introduction. Thank you. So, as you said, I've been in Westborough I've been in animal control for quite a while, which encompasses a bunch of animals, not just dogs. There aren't really any straight dog control anymore. Plus, the state has changed the title to animal control. So this is the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. We're very lucky in Westborough to have some really great resources. If you haven't been to Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, it's up on Rabbit Hill Road. I brought a bunch of their material today, partly because they do a great job. They have an online wildlife library, and I'm constantly referring people to them for different species, different problems that they have, and what's known as a problem animal control agent list. Problem animal control agents are the people that you would call if you had raccoons living in your attic. If it's living or nesting on your property, it's really not a municipal issue. It's a property owner issue. This also goes for condominiums and apartments. It really is the property owner's issue. It's not a municipal issue. If it's sick or injured, that's different. The only other difference is if you have a bat flying around when you're sleeping, flying around in your bedroom, or if it ran into you or something like this was flying around, or there's children or somebody who is incapacitated in some way, that they couldn't say that the bat hit them, only because bats can carry rabies and not show any symptoms. So I would want to know if you had a bat issue like that. If you had a bat flying around in the room and there was nobody in there and everybody's awake and you can simply open the window, you know there's no exposure, go ahead and open the window and let the bat out. Other circumstances I want to know about. So the other, let's see if I can that's the next one. Put my glasses on. Okay. Tufts Wildlife Center. This is another one of the great resources in the area. It's over in Grafton, just over the town line. Probably drive by it and never know that it's there because it's just down a little side street, right next to where the animal hospital is. I do a lot with them. Most of the sick and injured stuff, that's where it goes. They close at 5 o'clock at night though. So, and some things they don't take. They don't take orphaned animals. And they're used to, but not since COVID. So the next picture here, we've got a whole bunch of different things that are pretty common in the area. You may or may not have seen stoats. That's a little weasel type animal. It's not very big. They are kind of vicious. Of course, the black bear, and this is by no means size comparison. You're back. People do call me about bees, and honeybees are having huge problems with various viruses and other issues. I don't really do anything with bees, same kind of thing. You need a pest control agent. But if you think you have an actual honeybee swarm, they'll swarm together when they're moving. The queen is going to make a new colony, and half of the old colony goes with her, and they keep her very well protected in a ball. You might find a ball hanging in a tree, up 60 feet or right in front of your face, or underneath a park bench. You can get a hold of a beekeeper. Most of the times they will come and get the swarm for you. The other one that I get a lot of calls about are cicada killers. They're about that big. People keep thinking that they're the murder hornets. They're not. They're not the Asian hornet. They live in the ground. They actually don't really bother you unless you really, really, really pester them. They can sting, and it's a really nasty sting, but it's also not something that you can do. But people do call. So then we have the Fisher cat. Fisher cats are actually called a fisher. They moved in the 90s. They were here before, but their population exploded when rabies came up, terrestrial rabies came up in the 90s and wiped out the raccoon population. These creatures moved in, and so did muskrats. Skunks have been here. If you set a trap and you catch a skunk in your garden, I'm very happy to tell you how to let the skunk out of the trap. I don't want to get sprayed anyway. One suggestion I can make, though, if you're trying to trap an animal in your garden, if you don't want to catch a skunk, close the trap before dusk, or like before the skunks come out. If you've got skunks in your yard digging, they're leaving little quarter-sized holes, they're looking for grubs. So if you get rid of the grubs, they may go somewhere else. Same thing I also tell people, Fisheries and Wildlife website, they have the wildlife library. You click on that, open it up, look up skunk, gives you all kinds of advice. And then we have the battle tank. Poor mom. Mom is actually a marsupial. She's not a mammal. Being a marsupial, it's generally they don't carry rabies. They're not considered a rabies species because their body temperature is usually too low. But if one of those things falls off her back, she doesn't realize it. So if you find a little opossum in the woods below 10-week-old kitten size, it probably needs to go to a wildlife rehabilitator. Okay, these two pictures, here's a little baby deer. So every spring I get a call, orphan baby deer stuck someplace. Moms are obviously not very good about selecting where they put the baby. Because this one was put after the car was parked. This person didn't drive over it. They went to work. They came out at lunchtime, and there's a baby deer underneath the vehicle. So that had to be moved. Most of the time, I tell you, don't move them, leave them. Mom's off in the woods. And sure enough, Mom was off in the woods. But I couldn't leave this one there. It had to be moved, which is where this picture comes from. And you can see the work parking lot. Got the baby out, walked over toward the woods. It screamed the whole way. You could kind of hear Mom in the woods, but she didn't want to come out because she's afraid of people. As soon as I put that baby down on the other side of that guardrail, you can see kind of Mom looked up and the baby went right there. They found a better place to go. So now we are at black bears. We do have black bears in Westborough. How many there are, they're very few and far between. And most of the time it is a very docile kind of an animal. They really don't want to have anything to do with people. They're very timid, but they can be aggressive. It is possible. If you come across one, generally kind of just back away. It may be more concerned if you have a dog with you. They'd be more concerned about the dog. If the bear is going to attack, it's probably going to give you some kind of indication, whether it's pounding the paws or clicking its teeth, like growling. They stand up, but they don't really stand up that much. These things can run like 35 miles an hour. They go very fast. You're not going to outrun it. Don't try to climb a tree. They climb trees. You're not going to get up the tree quicker than it's going to get to you if it's really after you. The recommendation with a black bear, they say if it actually is trying to attack you, fight back. There are other bears in other parts of the country that if you fight back, then they get more aggressive. So you have to kind of know where you are. I'm trying to stick mainly with the Westborough area, but if you run across a brown bear up in New Hampshire, it might not behave the same way as a black bear will down here. So wherever you are hiking or walking or working, you want to kind of be aware of the surroundings. There's county extension services in most counties that can give you some idea, but your divisions of fisheries and wildlife kind of have maps of like the whole country that tell you where different things are, so you can get a pretty good idea. So this should be Westborough. The few black bears that we've seen, the upper body of water, and I didn't bring a pointer, is Little Chauncey. I'm sure most people are familiar with Lake Chauncey. They're pretty sure there's one in there in the Wayne F. McCallum Wildlife Sanctuary. It spotted there, I'll tell you about that in a second. There's another one, this first road going off this way is Smith Street, the one that's kind of north of Route 9 going by Route 30. There's been one in that area that gets periodically seen, occasionally goes after a beehive. Further down, off of Flanders, where they built the new temple, the Sikh temple, they had one sitting in their parking lot, and all I can think of is, of course you did, you took away its home. It came back looking for home, and everything's gone. So it's possible that it's the same one, but it's kind of unlikely. Bears, the females can have 10 to 14 mile territory, but that doesn't mean that there's only one for 10 to 14 miles, and maybe a few of them in there kind of sharing an area. And the males will roam, they say 50 to 60 miles. So down toward the lower end here, we've got up in State Forest. And somebody on Rubble Street loses a bird feeder almost every year to a bear coming out of Upland State Forest. You go over this side, you have Grafton. I've got a lovely video somewhere. It's not in this deck, but I was sent a lovely video of a bear walking down somebody's driveway from the Ring camera over in Grafton, right near the border. A few years ago, I was talking to the girl that used to be in the conservation department in town. She said that they were looking at properties around the Mill Pond Conservation Area, areas that are not have trails in them. But she said they saw a den that looked kind of suspicious. So that's half a dozen. Whether they're all resident bears or there's a couple of resident bears and the others are moving around different areas, I don't know. But it's possible they're there. You want to be careful when you're in the woods. So that's kind of the black bear. Now we go on to this guy. That's a half-ton animal on stilts. It's a half-ton barrel on stilts. They're rare, very, very rare, but there was one hit in Westborough on the highway, I want to say in 2016, out on Route 9. They do occasionally show up here. Once every 2 or 3 years, I'll get a phone call about a moose over, usually by Lake Chauncey in that McCallum wildlife area. They kind of follow rivers and streams and forested areas, and they just go as far as south as they go. When I first started as an animal control officer, I took Animal Control Officer Certification Academy, and one of the instructors there was talking about moose, and said that over at Tufts in Grafton, for many years, they had a moose that would come visit every spring because it was in love with one of the cows. Here's a problem with the half-ton animal on stilts. Most of your vehicles, it's high enough up, your headlights are not going to shine in the eyes the way they will for a deer. And if you hit that, you take those legs out, that whole half-ton is coming through the windshield. It's very, very dangerous. We don't get a lot of them here, the moose, but if you're further north or you're in another part of the state where they have more moose than we do, you want to be aware. Another reason not to really go speeding down the highway at night, because they are very dark. Also, occasionally they wandered into densely populated areas. Again, that's pretty rare. But one of the things, we don't want to scare them and rush them into a road. If just keep people away from them and call the authorities. There is a phone number for the Environmental Police Radio Room. There's an 800 phone number. I've got it here. It's probably on some of those pamphlets. But for the sake of time, we'll move on to the next one. So there's also not known to be mountain lion in Massachusetts, but there are known that a couple have passed through. There's a couple of articles there back in mid-2014-15 around the Quabbin Reservoir. Apparently there was one wildlife biologist that found a huge cache because these big cats will cache food if they don't eat it all at once. They'll build big caches. We found a huge cache, and DNA testing proved that it was actually created by a mountain lion over by the quad. Again, very few, very far between. This next slide is a little bit better comparison-wise. You can't really, yeah, you can see it. That animal grew to be 6 feet long. That's, if there's anybody 6 feet tall that wants to stand up, that's how long from the nose to the start of the tail. I think that's the start of the tail. So I think I've got
No, it's a picture on the slide.
bobcat. A lot of people see this bobcat and they think they're seeing a mountain lion. I get mountain lion calls because a couple have been proven to be in the state occasionally. Nobody's going to 100% say no. I actually did ask the environmental police, and this is what they told me. No one's going to tell you no. Because there's a very, very remote possibility, but most likely it's a misidentified animal, either bobcat or a coyote. So one resident in town sent me a couple of really nice videos, if I can get this to play. And I want you to pay attention, especially to kind of that rod in the back when the coyote passes by it. I haven't put it yet. Just so you have something to compare. Because they sent me a video of both the coyote going across. You see the size of the animal. And the next one up should be the bobcat. Same place. There's the bobcat. Beautiful.
Wow.
Baby mountain lion. This individual that sent me these is a veterinarian and they knew better. But some people see this on their ring, oh my God, I have a baby mountain lion. I have a bobcat. That's an Irish wolfhound. So she's roughly 4 feet long. Mountain lion's bigger than her. Now you have an idea. She's 160 pounds. Mountain lion's going to be about here and bigger. And that's my baby. That's why I put that in there. Tom French did a lovely article, and we've got the download. I don't know if people want to get a copy of that, but if you look on the Division of Fishery and Wildlife website, and I brought 2 copies of it, and this will tell you a lot more about mountain lions in Massachusetts, if anybody wants it. Get calls about these. And so this is the front page for projectcoyote.org. If you look at the bottom, there's a bunch of different educational materials that can be downloaded and shared with people. I have had a coyote specialist come into Westborough 3 times so far, I think, in the last half dozen years. And I still get calls that people are convinced that the coyotes are going to eat their children at the bus stop. And not convinced to put this on the marquee out by Lyman Street. I believe in the dispatch people every once in a while. I'm like, please put that up just to make people stop calling. There's really nothing that I can do about the coyotes. They live here. Even the ones that have mange, and the same is true for the fox, the state tells me not to go capturing them, and not to set traps for them. If I can walk up and throw a net over them, or throw a hoop on them, net them, I can bring them up to the wildlife center, and most likely they can sit down if they have the mange. Other than, or sick or injured, other than that, they want me to not trap them, partly because mange specifically is a contact disease. So if one coyote walks by the trap and rubs off the mange onto the trap, the next one that goes by is going to pick it up. And they're going to go by several times before they go into it, if they ever go into it. Now we hit raccoon. We get lots and lots of raccoon calls every year. Right now, the babies are starting to venture out, and some of them are falling to the bottom of the tree, and they can't figure out how to get back up. They will figure it out. It's rare to actually have to take a raccoon into rehab, and there are very few raccoon rehabilitators, wildlife rehabilitators. in Massachusetts to take them. So about this time of year, they all get filled up. So if you bring these animals over to Tufts, they're most likely going to euthanize them because there's nowhere for them to go. They can't keep the orphans up there, and there's nowhere else for them to go. If they're big enough to possibly make it on their own, the best thing to do is often leave them. So the other thing about raccoons is they are not nocturnal. They're cathmeral, new word for me. This has to do with the sleeping pattern. They will sleep 6 to 8 times a day, roughly equal blocks. Cathmeral animals are not specifically nocturnal, not crepuscular, not diurnal. They sleep the same way these things sleep. 3 or 4 hours at a time. Anybody that has had any of those, knows what I mean. So, but I get a lot of calls about raccoons being out in the daytime, and just because they're out in the daytime doesn't mean that they're sick. It could be any number of things, including that their sleep patterns have been adjusted, because during the daytime is when it's easier to find food around people. Because we are the best food source going. Okay, here's the next one. This actually is not a particularly happy picture. I don't know if you can see the baby. Still attached to mom's back. Mom has passed away. We think that it's from what's called second generation anticoagulant rodenticides, SCARs. We think she got a hold of probably a mouse or a rodent that somebody had poisoned, intentionally poisoned the animal. So she got a hold of it and it killed her. This is the only survivor. When I flipped her over, she had 2 more babies in her pouch. There was another one around the corner that had passed away. This is the only survivor, and there's a good chance the only reason it survived was because it couldn't get to the milk. So that one went to a wildlife rehabilitator, who sent me a nice picture about an hour later that I couldn't get to upload. The baby's in a blanket smiling. She's a baby. It's a little girl, she's a baby. So as I said, muskrats kind of moved in after the rabies. And the one on the right is the muskrat, one on the left is the beaver. The beaver can be a huge, huge animal. They can get up to be 80 pounds. So when you hit one of these at night with your vehicle, you may end up having to have some vehicle repairs done. They can be, hopefully you won't. They are the largest native rodent in Massachusetts. 35 to 80 pounds, so that's a big variation, and it has a lot to do with how much food. 2 to 3 feet long, another 10 inches, 12, 18 inches for the tail. Beaver's tail is like a paddle, like a flat paddle. The muskrat's a smaller animal, not anywhere near as big. They still kind of create problems with waterways, but their tail is more triangular, more rat-like. It's not flat. When they're small, sometimes it's tough to tell them apart with their tail. We've had a big uptick in beavers in the last probably 20 years, because about 20 years ago they changed some of the trapping regulations and did away with all the underwater set traps, which was the only thing that you could use for beaver at the time. Now you've got to use called Bailey's and Hancock trap. Looks like a gigantic metal folding suitcase, and it kind of folds up on them. Above water, it's not to drown them. It takes forever to drown a beaver, according to Fisheries and Wildlife, and I believe them. But they'll fold up and hold them until the trapper can come and pick them up. Those Bailey and Hancock traps, if you see them, leave them alone. I kid you not, the instructions tell you to wear a hockey helmet and use a 2x4 to set them, because they will break your arm. If you go and try to push one off. There are people that occasionally do try to set off traps to unset them because they don't like the idea of trapping, but if you do something like that, you may end up with a broken arm and a fine for interfering with illegal traps. They do cause problems. The beavers do cause problems with the waterways. If they're damming up and you're having a lot of problems with beaver on the property, again, it's not something that the town really takes care of unless it's like for school property or it's causing damage to municipal property, then they may do something. But they have to get a special permit, and so do you. There is a hunting season. Outside of that season, you get a special permit from the Board of Health. All right. Occasionally, we also get river otter in Westborough. It's rare, but they do come up. I've had a couple get hit, mostly on South Street, but they'll come up. They just follow the various rivers. We do have the Assabet through town and all kinds of little riverlets that go into different ponds and things, and the river otter will find them. One thing I've never had a call about in town, I don't know why I've never had a call about it. They're in, not known to be in Westborough and Grafton, but they're in a lot of surrounding towns.
I've seen them in Westborough, I moved to town in Parish.
You've seen them over there? Yeah, I've never had a call about them. I have, however, seen a few dogs seem to come over to Tufts, and they just had a whole face full, and you know there's a porcupine out there somewhere. But you want to, if you ever get a porcupine quill, or your dog gets a porcupine quill, you really want to bring them to the vet, because those quills can work their way in. They have a barbed end, like scales and barbs, and when they get in and work their way further in, they don't come out the other side. It's not like a fish hook that you can push through. They have a tendency to go further in and cause more problems, including infections and things like that. So if your dog, you go to your doctor, your dog goes to your vet. Yeah, but you want to also, you don't want to cut the barbs. You want to just leave them intact, and you want to try to stop the animal from pawing or scratching at them, because that will just make it worse. So, a couple of wild trees. So the heritage tree, domestic breed. Any one of them, if you feed them, they will come. We had a turkey a couple of years last summer over, and I kept getting calls about the same bird between Ocean State Job Lot and Lowe's. Everybody's calling, there's an injured turkey, you know, come get it, pick it up. And I would get there, and this bird is walking around like this. It literally, it's doing this, laying on its side, acting like it can't fly, it's dying. People are bringing in water, they're going in and buying seed, oh, you poor thing, you're here until the animal control shows up. I show up, I get about this close with, several times. There had to be 9 or 10 times last year between the two locations. Same bird. Has to be the same bird. Next time you see her, she's doing this on the other side. She figured out that if she looks like she's hurt, people are going to go buy her food. What better source? Unfortunately, coyotes may or may not have figured out she's acting like this, I can catch that. Also, she's getting fat and not able to fly as well. So, the hawks and the owls, very susceptible to secondary rodenticide poisoning. The hawks and the owls and any of our birds of prey. And of course, raccoons and opossums and other animals that eat the small rodents that we're trying to get rid of. There are other methods. There is a couple, I think, now of the problem animal control agents, as I said, the ones that you would call if you had a rat or a mouse problem, because they can legally still use these second-generation anticoagulants. You can't yourself go into the store and buy them off the shelf. So they're not something that the regular person can use. They're the things you find in the bait boxes. Part of the problem with the second-generation anticoagulants is that they stay in the system of the victim animal that eats them for up to 4 weeks. The first anticoagulant ones apparently would go through the system after about 7 days. The animal's dead, but they're still going to persist in the environment for about 7 days. We've quadrupled the time that poison is in that carcass. So there's a much bigger possibility of getting something that we don't want to get. So what I was saying about feeding wildlife, it does negatively impact, because they get accustomed to us, our bird feeders. Our bird feeders, your compost piles, your gardens, your everything, it will attract different types of species of wildlife. There's a bunch of information on making your backyard, your area more friendly. Be aware of what you're attracting. You don't want to put out something that's going to attract bees if you don't want bees. If you're allergic to honeybees, put out feverfew or something that they don't like, that they'll stay away from. The same for most of your animals, and there's a whole bunch of what xeriscape information out there from various parts of the country that should be able to help you get what you would prefer to have. So in talking about the, went down too quick. Talking about the second generation rodenticides, I do have some information. There's 26 or so cities and towns in the Commonwealth that have banned their use completely. Grafton very recently banned the use of the second generation completely within the limits of Grafton. So I have actually here their wording of their bylaw. If it's something that people were interested in trying to get together and do, that would be something that you could work on. So I don't know how we doing with the time. Okay, not too bad. Turtles. These are the different turtles you'll find in Massachusetts. 5 of them up there you will not find in Westborough. If you find a leatherback sea turtle in Westborough, you're more likely to find a river otter. But the other ones you may find, I've seen spotted turtles, we get the painted turtles, we of course get the big snapping turtles. We've had a couple of red sliders. The other ones are much less common. The painted and the snapping are probably the most common. Right now, snapping turtle females are crossing the roads to get to the other side, lay eggs. They don't tend to the nests, but they will lay up to 60 eggs at one time. Handling the snapping turtle, if you see it in the road, if you can, safely get it to the side it's going. One call this week, we had the same call every hour, Sunday. Turtle up against, in Route 9 up against the guardrail, the median. And it was coming from Carmax, trying to get across to the bit of swamp on the other side toward Oak Street. And finally, because people did, they picked it up, they were very good, they picked it up, they got it off, they moved it back into Carmax. An hour later, it's up against the median. I finally caught it against the median. And I actually have somebody with blue lights follow me if I'm on Route 9 doing this, because it is very dangerous. And they followed me right around to almost the exact same spot on the other side of the median at the Turtle Belt. And I warned them, anywhere between 2 hours and 5 days, Mom was going to be on the other side wanting to go back home. These medians kind of drive me crazy, these concrete ones. I almost wish that they would space them a few feet apart. Because then the ducklings and the turtles and some of the other animals would be able to get between to where they're going. And I know part of the argument is, well, people will do this too. Okay, if we've got people that are crossing without a crosswalk at a very high traffic area, it might be useful for them too. Just, you know, or maybe there's other reasons that you don't want to do it. Okay. So this, one of nice piece of video I caught a couple of years ago, is a milk snake. This is one of the great fakes. I don't know if you people are familiar with great fakes. This one will rub its belly scales together and whip its tail really quickly, make you think it's a rattlesnake. Because you'll leave it alone. Personally, if I hear that noise, I'm going to assume it's a rattlesnake, and I'm just going to stomp my foot, walk the other way for a while. We'll get to that in a second. This one was over on Fisher Street. Let's see if we can get it to play. There you go. Now, I irritated it. I got it out of somebody's hallway. But it was doing such a nice display, and I wanted to get the video, because it was just... Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have sound. But I did irritate the snake. And there it goes. This is where we have confirmed, and they said unconfirmed, timber rattlesnakes. So there, I still don't know why we have them there, in the quadrant, and here. There are people that swear they've seen them in different areas. I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say what I just said. If I'm out working in my garden and I hear that rattle, I'm going to assume rattlesnake. do the sensible thing, stand your foot, walk the other way. Most of your snakes feel kind of through the ground the vibrations. And if you kind of tap, they usually will go. We don't need anybody getting bit by a rattlesnake. So, the next thing up, yeah, rabies. So, this we also have in town, rabies. This is provided by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Every year, Mass Department of Ag puts out a rabies surveillance report. This is something that I will use, as I mentioned, is that some animals we have less likely, they won't test them. These kind of what I use to determine if somebody needs to test an animal, if it's bitten or scratched someone. Any of those, first ones up, woodchuck, skunk, raccoon, otter, fox, fish, or coyote. If you've been bitten or scratched by one of them, if you don't have the animal, call your doctor right away. Because any one of them can have rabies. And these are all wild animals. Cat, cow, dog, ferret. If we have the animal, we might be able to quarantine the animal to see if it has rabies. Or test the animal, not the human. Testing requires the animal to be euthanized. The dog, the cat, the ferret, we know with them we quarantine for 10 days because we know if they were capable of spreading rabies at the time of a bite or a scratch, they're either going to have really significant symptoms or be dead in 10 days. And rabies is, you don't see it a lot in the United States. Outside of the United States, anywhere between 55 and 75,000 people die every year. Some estimates say it's much higher because it goes unreported in so many areas. A lot of it is dog, some of it's cat, but in other countries, people die from it regularly. So if you were exposed to any of these animals, bite or scratch, and you don't have the animal available, call your doctor and discuss getting vaccines. Once symptoms start, I think there's one person in the last 5 or 10 years in the United States that survived a case of rabies. It took her something like 2 or 3 years to begin to talk and walk again. If you get bitten or scratched by one of these animals and you get the vaccines prior to the onset of symptoms, so far as I know, nobody that's gotten the the vaccines before the onset of symptoms has died. Me included. I got bit by a rabid skunk 4 years ago. Very teeny tiny bite, but that's all it will take. It will kill you. More rabies information from 2024. This is the number of animals submitted to get tested, the number that came up positive. I don't know what other was. I don't have it in there. Yeah, the other category can include alpaca, beaver, bobcat, chipmunk, cow, deer, fisher, flying squirrel, goat, gopher, okay. But you get the category 2 animals are in there mostly. So this is kind of, it's present. And then this is the map they put up showing you where. It's not accurate because I know for a fact in 2024 there were 2 rabid animals, a skunk and a bat, in Westborough that showed up right near the center of town. Yeah, both of them. In fact, the Board of Health put out little notices about both of them because if anybody had been exposed to either of those animals, one was a bat and one was a skunk, we wanted people to know and we wanted people to contact their doctors because it's deadly. So that pretty much goes through the picture. I will try. I brought a whole bunch of information as well.
Any questions for Melinda?
Really, did that good job? Yes.
More, what is your factors? How did you decide to go into the field?
In animal control? I started in 1990 in animal control. I've loved animals my entire life. I've had animals my entire life, mainly dogs and cats, although I did help with a squirrel. And I was the kid that would bring home the little injured baby birds and things like this. And then we would bring them up to New England, it used to be the Wildlife Center over in Worcester. So when the job came open, my son was very young. There was a part-time job that came up, and the schedule worked really well in my schedule. And eventually, within a couple of years, it became full-time. So I was full-time in Westborough and part-time in Northborough at the same time. But my child also had some special needs, so it worked out to not be good for me to be working 60 hours a week. So we cut the time back for quite a number of years. I was in Northborough for quite a few years part-time. And then I came back to Westborough when the person that replaced me retired.
Do you have special training?
Yes.
What sort of training do you do?
So back when I first started, special training was not required. But within a year or so, the select board was very amenable to letting me go to the Animal Control Officer Certification Academy in Massachusetts. So I had that training. And I've always kind of kept up with various different things. The training was not required until 2013. And the training now my academy back in 1992, was 100 hours, 104 hours, something like that. It was consecutive, once a week for several consecutive weeks, for 3 or 4 months. The academy now is a little closer to 114 hours long, but in 2013, the state had its own core competencies is what they call it. It's 2 days, it's 16 hours. So when I came back to Westborough, I did the core competencies. I thought it was a nice little refresher. Yes?
How much of an issue do you have with unleashed dogs attacking wildlife?
Not that much that I hear about. I think most people are kind of aware. What happens if they get into a fight with wildlife? They usually go to the vet. Veterinarians are required by state law to notify the animal inspector, which I am also an animal inspector. They are technically 2 separate positions, but they're required to notify the animal inspector, and I quarantine the animal based on the circumstances of the information. Yes?
I'm just curious what a typical day for you, I mean, I suppose there's nothing typical about your days, but what are the bulk of your calls about?
It depends a lot on the time of year. I thought that last video was in the deck too, I didn't see it.
Huh?
The last video I sent you, I thought was in the deck, I didn't see it, but that's okay. The one with my daughter rolling down the...
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Oh, okay, all right. The calls kind of do depend on the time of year. It's like January, February is usually moderately quiet. That gives me some catch-up time to catch up with annual reports, get everything straightened out from the year prior, close it out, get into the next stuff. That's when I get a lot of bites and scratches. Dogs and cats, they're very cooped up with the people and may not be happy with people that are being cooped up with them. Or the mailman, or the delivery man, very common things. Once you get to like February, beginning of February, you start getting increased sunlight. It's sort of perceptible. Right around Groundhog Day, you start seeing an increase in sunlight. And Groundhog Day is actually the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. And at that point, wildlife don't live on the same calendar that we do. Right around that point, things start to wake up, start coming out of the den, getting, plants begin to emerge, food sources are beginning to come up. And then once you get past that, you start getting mid-spring, I'll start getting calls about coyotes following people. People think that the coyote's following them when they're walking through the woods. And this will go on until midsummer. And what the coyote most likely is doing, if it's following you, it might actually be following the dog, wondering if it can get that little thing off of the leash. If that little dog is more than 8 feet away from you, it's at risk. But most likely what the coyote is really doing is staying between you and its babies and its den. And it's just kind of, it thinks it's escorting you away. That's what it thinks it's doing. You think something else for obvious reasons. So then, as I said earlier, right now we've got turtles crossing the road, and these are the females going to lay eggs. So I'm also getting calls about there's a turtle digging in my yard, there's a turtle stuck under a fence. If it's digging with its back legs, is laying eggs. Leave it alone. Sometimes you'll see me put a traffic cone out, because they, for some reason, they love the side of the road or the side of the sidewalk where there's nice grass, there's a little sand under there, they dig underneath, it's hot and humid, they lay their eggs, they usually get up and they leave. But if you see a traffic cone that says ACO, there's a chance that there's a snapping turtle. Has been there at least, and it's there because they don't want you to accidentally walk into it, or your dog to walk into it, or run into it, run it over, anything like that. Because they'll leave within an hour or two usually. I have had a couple of calls about a turtle that stayed in the same position for 4 or 5 days. I talked to the people at the Turtle Rescue League of New England, which is out in Southbridge, and they said, yeah, they can stay there that long, they can have problems laying eggs. And it did. After 5 days, it was gone. So after the turtles crossing the road, we start getting ducklings. They kind of at the same time, and the time frames are pretty broad, and they tend to overlap. First turtles crossing the road are usually the males early spring. It's the season looking for love. It's turtles. After turtles, at the very end of turtles, I'm now starting to run into ducklings in the road, or ducklings in the storm drain. Mama duck is not a very bright animal. We had one police officer that literally was able to pick up these drains with his hands. He'd put on his gloves, he'd walk up, he'd pick up the drain, he'd move it. I'd go get the ducks out, give them back to Mama, she was handy. We did this over at the Stop and Shop Plaza a couple of years ago, and we put the cover back on, and we watched Mama duck go right over the next storm drain. Dory lifted it up, he moved to the side, I got the ducks out, he put it back, I said, help me herd her away from the weapon. Because we were able to kind of escort and keep away from going to the next one, but get right over the next one. Yes?
Are there any wildlife rehabilitators in Westborough?
I believe there's one wildlife rehabilitator in Westborough right now. It could be two. Wildlife rehabilitators are all volunteers, by the way, just so everybody knows. They're doing this at their own expense. That opossum I showed you went out to a woman in Sudbury who fed it. Opossums require special feeding techniques, which make it very difficult for a regular average person to do. And you have to have the permit to have that animal. Same Fisheries and Wildlife website, or if you look up wildlife rehabilitator online, it'll give you a map of the state, and it'll show you some nice pictures of who takes birds and who takes mammals and who takes what. Those little ducklings that get left in the storm drain, they're migratory birds. Whoever takes them has to have a federal migratory bird permit. Closest one actually now is in Weymouth, I think. Which is closer, Weymouth or Carver? Either way, if I get these ducklings, I'm going to take. Yes?
What can you do about rabbits? They keep on multiplying and multiplying. Tell your drivers about it. What is the time of year?
Fencing. Fencing. And coyotes eat them. And hawks eat them. And everything eats rabbit, except for rabbit. Not true with chicken. Everything eats chickens, including chickens. But yeah, there are things that eat them. It's mainly fencing.
I know you talked about rattlesnakes. Are there other venomous snakes in Massachusetts or in and around
There's
that area?
copperhead snake, also very, very rare. Most of the snakes in Massachusetts, and the ones known to be in this area, are not venomous.
Is state law require an animal officer in each municipality? And is there like do you report into a state agency?
Yes. And as I said before, I am animal control officer and animal inspector. So animal control and animal inspectors are required under state law, but under different statutes. They do report back to Mass Department of Agricultural Resources. There's also certain specific reports that I'm required to give to the town. Every month I give a list to the town clerk of all the dogs that I've impounded, if I've taken a dog in, and if the owner has claimed it. Because of privacy stuff, I don't publish that, but the town clerk has it. So she knows, and then I also do a monthly report. It's easier for me to do a monthly report, because I haven't required, I don't have to do monthly reports, but it's easier for me to do it that way for adding it up, because I am required by state law to provide the Board of Selectmen with a quarterly warrant return. As the animal control officer, the select board is required to issue me a warrant. That's what gives me the authority to pick up somebody's private property and hold it until I get it back to them. Dogs and cats are private property in Massachusetts. So every animal control officer in the state should have a warrant issued by their authority. And for the town of Westborough, it would be Westborough. I have warrants for Grafton because I also do Grafton. And I do my quarterly warrant returns. Beyond that, I do an annual report. State law doesn't really require it, but it's good for the town and it helps me to keep everything kind of organized. Somebody else over here had a question. Yes.
I had a possum in my house on the second floor, the bathroom. And I actually called you guys, and I think it was you maybe, who came and picked it up and put it in a cage and, yeah. Is that unusual? I couldn't figure out how this opossum
So-
came in.
Can you repeat the question?
She had an opossum on the second floor apartment. I'm guessing that was in between the times. If they took it and removed it, I generally would have only let it go outside, because it is illegal to relocate wildlife in Massachusetts.
I don't know where
Anywhere.
they took it, but they took it out of my house.
They took it out of your house. If they did not let it go on your property, I mean, if they took it across the street, like the turtle that's gonna go across the street, if they took it across the street, fine. But if they took it for a ride someplace and didn't euthanize it, then they would probably, or bring it to a wildlife rehabilitator. They would have been violating Mass Code of Massachusetts regulations, which fisheries and wildlife deal with. Somebody else have any question?
Well, thank you very much.
What's your stuff for you?
Okay, so there's a lot of information on the table. We're going to, first we're going to do the scholarships.
Now we have the break.
Okay, the break before the scholarships.
Can I just also add on the tables over there is copies of the winning scholarship essays, but there aren't enough for everybody. There's probably 20 of them, and obviously there's more than 20 of us. So maybe one per family, and maybe if you want to read it real quick and put it back for somebody else, that would be great. I didn't expect such a great turnout, so thank you for Melinda for drawing so many people.
So, how long is the break?
I'll
Okay, it's just about 8 o'clock, 10 minutes after 8. We'll start the business meeting, including the scholarships.
All right, we're going to start heading into the business meeting. If they're ready for finish eating their snacks and have a seat. If you didn't get any snacks, you can have some at the end. There's plenty of food.
Okay, well, thank you for Melinda, and thank you all for staying for the business meeting. Our first topic in the business meeting is our annual presentation of scholarships. We're very pleased to have our 2 scholarship winners here, and I will introduce them. So Westborough Community Land Trust awards 2 $1,000 scholarships and 3 honorable mention to graduating seniors in Westborough. These awards were made based on student essays written for WCLT's annual Earth Day essay contest. So Tyler Moynihan and your family, could you please come up? I'll introduce you first. Tyler received the WCLT scholarship for his essay describing Sandra Pond and how it inspired him and provided comfort to him. Tyler's love for the pond clearly came through, and the fact that Tyler shared that love with his sister and friends is especially meaningful. I knew this was coming and I didn't think about touching that she's here. So anyway, Tyler completed a research project on global freshwater sources and the wildlife they support. Tyler's passion for Sandal Pond and nature is evident in the essay, and this passion will no doubt continue to grow throughout his life. Tyler's a senior at Thayer Academy. Tyler plans to attend Wesleyan College in the fall and would like to graduate with a degree in either physics or engineering, and he'll be part of the men's varsity soccer team. Congratulations, Tyler.
The recipients have already received their actual scholarship award.
So Noah Norse and your family. You like to take the fun of it? So Noah Norse received his the Westborough Community Land Trust Scholarship for his essay describing some of the history of Norse Farm and the roles he played while helping his family at the farm. The essay explains a great deal about the importance of preserving farms, noting that Norse Farm provides so much more than the community, so much more to the community than just the produce grown there. It's a place where people can enjoy nature and learn about history, all helping to preserve the 15th oldest continuously running family business in the United States of America. Impressive. Noah constructed a nature trail with 9 signs on the farm property. The pride he has in the farm came through clearly in his essay. Noah is a senior at Westborough High School and plans to attend Denison University in the fall and will be majoring in international business. Go to the WCLT awards, the Pepper Award and the President's Award. Chris Patukas, please come up, and your husband, please. Chris is receiving the Pepper Award, and the Pepper Award is, so let me start with my notes here. Chris Patukas is owner of Mugford's Flower Shop, as many of you may know. For over 10 years, Chris has provided flowers to thank people who have participated in WCLT's Earth Day litter cleanup. She came forward unsolicited the first year with an offer to donate a bouquet of flowers to each household volunteering in the litter cleanup, to show her appreciation for all those who help keep Westborough beautiful. At that time, the cleanup was a one-day event. Participants gathered in person at the beginning of the day to choose their cleanup sites. Chris bought a huge bucket of daffodils, several buckets of daffodils, to hand out to each family that came, and she continues to support the cleanup in that way for about 5 years. Since 2020, the cleanup has been a week-long event with online sign-up. But Chris didn't miss a beat. She came up with the idea to donate a certificate to each participating family to be delivered with their cleanup bags, allowing them to come into the shop and pick up the bouquet anytime that week. Chris and Mugford's Flower Shop has been a steadfast supporters of WCLT and our cleanup efforts, creating a beautiful partnership that is very much appreciated by WCLT and the cleanup team each year. Thank you, Chris, and congratulations on your Peppers Award. The Peppers Award,
No, thank you.
The Members Award is awarded each year to someone outside of WCLT who has shown an outsized support for our efforts.
Should be the one on the left picture.
Yep, I got it. Whoops. I got it. We're good. So. Our next award is the President's Award, which is provided in recognition to a WCLT member for contributions which have had significant impact on the success of WCLT. Ellen, please. Ellen Bishop was a founding member of WCLT over 25 years ago. Ellen served for many years as a WCLT board member in support of the organization in many ways. In particular, since the beginning, she has tirelessly donated her expertise as a professional graphic artist to support WCLT needs. She designed our logo, which is shown here in the lower left, and you can see some on t-shirts around the room. We all proudly wear her logo on our t-shirts and appreciate it. It's also used on all of our signage, the website, letterhead, hats, stickers, many other places. She designed all of our event posters every year for over 25 years for our live animal shows and for the Earth Day litter cleanup. She even designed billboards for these events when the Route 9 billboards were installed. She also created all of our beautiful annual reports, which we recently migrated from paper to online. Ellen retired last year. Congratulations. Both professionally and sadly, her volunteer design work with WCLT, but she leaves a huge legacy of expertly designed and produced communications. Thank you, Ellen, for your years of service, and congratulations. There's a token of our appreciation taped to the back for both of you.
Thank you.
Next order of business, I'm sure you've seen all the campaign signs and stuff. We're going to have an election of the board of directors. Start with the big debate among them to see who's going to win the. Just kidding. We're very honored and privileged to have such a quality rank of new board members willing to join and serve the organization. We had 8 new board members, as shown on the left. Brian and Vinny are their term ended, and they need to be voted in again. The rules for WCLT board is that you get elected to the board for a 3-year term with a maximum of 3 3-year terms. So that's what's the reference on the 2nd term and the 3rd term. On the right side, you can see the continuing board members who have been board members in the past, don't need to get re-elected because our terms are not up. But we have 4 board members, including myself, whose term is going to finish at the end of 2026. And where it says terms off, that means it's our third year term. So we're no longer eligible to run. And that includes Karen and Steve Lowe. So anyway, if I could get a motion to nominate these 10, entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second? Okay. Any debate?
You just asked them to
stand up and introduce themselves to people.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So the board members that are actually new and old board members, could you stand up? Also, Vice President, our President couldn't be here. Janet, could you introduce yourself?
Everybody here.
All of us? Okay, I'm Janet Anderson, and I've only been on the board for a year, 2 years, I guess. And I'm also chair of the Education Committee.
Brian O'Keefe, co-chair of the Stewardship Committee with Scott Henderson as well.
I'm Steve Roll, I'm the assistant treasurer and bookkeeper. I've been around since around 2008, I think, with WCLT.
Jim Ryan, I'm a dues paying member, not done too much, but got time on my hands, so here I am on Brian's stewardship committee as well.
And Karen, you all moved in that section.
Karen Yowell, I term off next year, I'm the secretary.
I'm Tom Bryan. I was a Scoutmaster of Troop 4, and Steve Roll helped two of my kids, one Eagle, and one, he was also a Scoutmaster of Troop 4, and one Gold, Girl Scout Gold Award came in, and was part of that too. So with projects on WCLT, so I'm happy to be here.
Tom Askew. So I've been in scouting with a lot of these gentlemen here, assistant scoutmaster at 382, at 3 Eagle Scouts myself, and have used the trails extensively throughout the years, even camping on them. So pleasure to be here.
Rupali?
My name is Rupali. I'm going to be co-chairing a new committee called the Land Restoration Committee, and along with Julia Miller, with the primary aim of trying to convert land that is overtaken by non-native invasive species and placing pollinator gardens in place. So that will be our goal. Thank you.
David?
I'm David Buffo, also been active in scouting with many folks, and an Eagle coach with Troop 100 for many years, and so a number of WCLT was a sponsor for a number of our Eagle projects, including my son's. So, coming in on the board.
Hi, I'm Sam Plummer. I've been volunteering with the Education Committee with Janet for a little over a year now. I started working with Rupali as well on the Land Restoration Committee. I'm a lifelong Westborough resident. I spent 20 years walking on the trails around town, so I'm very excited to be joining the board and be able to kind of contribute to what WCLT is here to do.
So, Vinny?
I'm Vinny Cervello. I'm the treasurer, work in conjunction with Steve, and I'll be starting my 3rd term on the board this year.
Last and hopefully not least, Mark O'Connell. There's a bit of a theme here. I've been involved in scouting with a number of people here, done a number of Eagle projects along the WCLT properties, including the one for my son. I haven't been directly involved with the WCLT up until this point, but have been indirectly involved due to things in the household kind of permeating out and sucking in the family. So now it's my turn to take a step forward and be more directly involved.
Thank you all for offering. So we have a motion and a second. We should probably have the vote before I forget to vote.
I so move, we set the directors as.
Okay. I think we have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? A unanimous vote. Now need to elect officers. Officers are appointed, are elected for a 1-year term, and the president and vice president, myself as the vice president, Lorena as the president, have decided not to run again this year. Fortunately, we have some very capable people, including Mark and Brian, who stepped up to take on new roles. Vinny and Steve and Karen are continuing in the role they have had this past year. Can I have a motion to accept these in a second?
Second.
Bunch of seconds. All in favor of these officers? Another unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Another exciting piece of business is we got to approve the minutes from last year's annual meeting. So can you read this quickly? This was carefully developed by Karen and been read by the current officers, and we believe it's accurate. Can I have a motion to accept these minutes?
Move to accept.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes? Another unanimous vote. Whoops, I forgot. Anybody opposed? Now it's unanimous. Okay. And I am remiss in not saying this earlier. Thank you very much to Karen and Janet for doing a great job of organizing this. I'm standing at the front, just kind of parroting. Karen put the whole presentation together. Janet did a lot of the mechanics of it. It was a great job, and I really appreciate both of your work.
I just said it's a typo. Taken to the bottom line, Derek Strickland, his last name is spelled wrong, it should be A-N. Karen, take note.
Well,
I move that the minutes be accepted as amended.
I was going to presume that. So next up is Vinnie Savello, who's going to give us the treasurer's report.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Up at the table, if anyone saw the handouts, we have the statement of activity for the last 12 months from June 24 through May of 2025. Financial position of WCLT continues to be strong. Last year we discussed our assets and how we're moving them from CDs that were low interest yielding CDs into more of an investment strategy through one of our business partners at LPL Financial, through Thomas Wealth Financial. You'll notice if you do have any of the financials there, just a couple things that changed. So our revenues for the year were $55,691, which is up about $7,000 year over year, which is great. Our overall expenses actually decreased about $5,600. The key two differences there, one on the revenue side, we had a large donation, anonymous donation, $25,000, which we had talked about a couple years ago. That was the second payment. And the materials and supplies had went down year over year, just from some spillover of expenses over at Gilmore Pond that we had in the last 6/1/23 to 5/31/24. So we ended the last 12-month period at a surplus of $33,426, which is great. And as far as our investment income goes, we did change our strategy a little bit due to our strong financial position. We did move into we originally had income producing funds that we had a lot of dividend growth, but due to our 501c3 status, we wanted to pull down some of the dividend income and more have long-term appreciation and value. So the values of the accounts have increased incrementally, which is great, but as far as the year-to-year income statement, we're showing a little bit less of an investment income, which is intentional on our end. All of the tax returns have been provided and filed timely. They are all available on the internet, on the IRS website. You can go and check any nonprofit online. I will open it up if anyone has any questions or general questions. Like I said, the financials are there. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or follow-up. Thanks.
So I will be providing the president's report in Luana's absence. Start with just an acknowledgement of all of the committees of WCLT. All 7 of these are active committees with their persons listed. We're going to drill into a few of these and go into a little more detail. So the first is land restoration, which Rupelli introduced. It's a new committee which Rupelli and her family and friends had started a program about 3 years ago, and it had gotten quite successful. It's an active Facebook group. You can follow it. She approached, I think you approached us. Anyway, we got together and had a discussion about the possibility of folding that underneath WCLT, and we thought it was a great fit, and we had an active group that wanted to get support of a bigger organization and so forth, so there's good synergy. And if you, Rupelli, maybe you could describe any of these pictures you want to comment on, but it's an example of the work you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that opportunity. So pictures here are basically an area in the Bowman Conservation area. We started off on a pilot project putting up a pollination garden right by the entrance. If you go to the 77 Bowman Street entrance, if you look to the left, there's a pilot project there where there are several species of native pollinator-friendly plants that we've put in. We follow the research of Dr. Robert Jagir, who has this list that's native Massachusetts plants that are friendly to bumblebees, butterflies, and all kinds of pollinators. We started there, and this is somewhere further away from there. What you're seeing there is these wonderful students from the student council at the high school. They came, they helped us rip out the invasive bittersweet, which has taken over that area. That area is completely clean now, where you see the picture of the big group that's completely clean now, and we are slowly restoring it by putting in seedlings of, once again, winter-sown native Massachusetts plants. We hope to continue working on this area and restore it to its full glory, and we'd like everybody's support in that. Thank you so much.
Has also gone into the schools and started educating the kids, and has gone into Mill Pond and Gibbons and had an active winter sow planning, teaching them how to winter sow and then actually running projects where they create.
Absolutely. Just quickly, yes, at Mill Pond we've set up a pollination garden, and it's serendipitous that this coming Saturday we'll be doing one at the high school, and next week we'll be doing one at the Gibbons Middle School. All of these are not plants that we bought. Children have winter sown these seeds in the fall, late into the winter, and then seedlings from that are going into the garden. We really hope that the kids see this as an opportunity to understand how nature just takes care. If we take care of each other and collaborate, we can do beautiful things. So that's what the aim is.
So obviously a very strong program, and we're very happy to have it as part of the WCLT initiative. Janet has run our education committee with great success over the years. I don't know how many years, but we got various monthly guided tours or monthly programs. Sometimes in the winter we go indoors and have programs. The Earth Day litter cleanup that was mentioned earlier is very well known and popular in town. Animal shows, would you like to comment on anything further?
The 2 photos on the right are from our March Wild Animal Show, and the presenters, Animal Adventures, were really nice about letting people come up and get close to the animals at the end, so that's when I took the pictures, because obviously that's the most photogenic moment. And on the left is a program that Sam Plummer ran in, I want to say November, but I'm not sure, but it was a sunset and moonrise walk near Lake Chauncey, and my goodness, that was successful. I think we had 75 people, and it was just perfectly timed. We walked up to the top of the hill, and we turned around, and there was the moon coming up over the horizon, and everybody just stood in silence as the moon rose, and nobody said be quiet or anything. We were all just silent with awe, and it came right up, and then some little boy goes, "It moves so fast." It was just a really nice moment, and so. But we put on lots of programs. That's just an example.
very successful initiative for many years under Janet's leadership. The Stewardship Committee, so one of the things we're best known for is the trails all around town, and the Stewardship Committee with Brian and Scott leadership, and many of you have been participants. Maintain the trails and build bridges and lots of chainsawing. You want to add some comments?
No, we keep the trails clear, clean, and safe. It takes a lot of hands, and we've got a great group on the Stewardship Committee. Thank you.
We do have, always looking for more volunteers, and one area that we wanted to highlight is land preservation. Through attrition and changes and stuff, it's gotten to be a pretty lean organization. 2 people, I think, are basically active at this time, including Don. And the lawyer who's been a long time member is getting older and decided to not be as involved. So we're looking for special skills in regard to lawyer, real estate, understanding, engineering. But I think they'd be happy with anybody who is raising their hand and want to learn about land preservation. It is a commitment to very long-term cultivating relationships and trying to make progress slowly over time. It's John could probably elaborate, but it can be frustrating at times on how slow things go. You've got to be patient and persistent, and we've had success. Graphic designer, as we heard, Ellen has retired from her profession and given up her tools and stuff. We'd love to have some volunteer help on graphic design. And as I said earlier when we were voting for the board members, we have 4 board members who are going to term out next year. 3 of them are going to term out next year, and we'd like to keep our board at the size we are now. We were running very, very lean, very short-handed this past year, but we had so many good volunteers step forward. I think we're going to be in good shape, but we want to keep getting new volunteers. And the best way to, if you're interested in kind of kicking the tires and learning, get involved in one of these committees and volunteer for a year. And you can decide maybe to run for the board next year. So always looking for new talent. I have no more slides, and I'm wrapping up unless anybody has anything else, any board member or anything else I've forgotten.
I just want to remind people that the financial report and the winning essays from the scholarship competition are on this end of the table that's near me. The rest of that is stuff that Melinda brought, but you feel welcome to grab those on your way out and read them at home. And I printed 1 copy of the annual report, but this year we're doing it online. You should have all gotten the email with the link to it. If you didn't, let me know, and I can certainly send you that link again. And it's also on the website. There's a link to it. So if you want to peruse a paper copy, for some reason I'll put that on the table too, but don't take it with you. It's the only one, and you can look at it online.
Well, the meeting is adjourned. Just quickly, all new board members, just quickly, so I can get it to you.